Good morning, and thank you, Liv, for listening to Artist Talk with LVA. This is the show produced by Louisville Visual Art, and I'm your host, Keith Waits. My first guest today is Doug DeWeese. He was born and raised in Louisville and has taught art in that community for Jefferson County Public Schools for nearly 27 years. Doug earned his bachelor's degree in Georgia, a master's of art in teaching the visual arts from the University of Louisville, and is a national board certified teacher. He has been a part of the visual art faculty at DuPont Manual High School for 21 years, where he teaches painting, drawing, and printmaking classes. He has been vital in modernizing and continuing high standards for the visual art magnet program in schools, serving on the admissions committee, instructional leadership team, hiring committee, and former sponsor of the National Art Honor Society at DuPont Manual Art School. Doug, thank you for being here with me.
You're quite welcome. I feel honored to be here, and I'm glad we could get together and have a talk.
That's right. And of course, we're pre-recording this because when I do this show, you're in a classroom teaching kids.
It does take its time.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to ask, well, so you're being honored at the 2023 LVA Honors as the Visual Art Educator Teacher of the Year. You know, when we look at the careers, you know, my own sort of standards for this is that I think it needs to be a teacher who's been doing it for a bit, has some time in, is really committed to what they're doing and the mission of teaching art. So and by the way, that is on March 22nd at LVA. Tickets are for sale. If you go to louisvillevisualart.org, you can go to LVA Honors and you can find out more about joining in on the fun that night. But how did you come to be a teacher? Was that always a goal or an ambition, or did you know, what was your journey to the classroom?
I was like many high school kids graduating. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I felt like I was always a creative person or a visual person. And so, you know, I majored in art. And after I graduated with my undergrad, I worked in art marketing end of the field. But I knew I missed the creation, seeing things being created, seeing things applied, seeing problem solving taking place through the visual arts. And it didn't take too long for me to realize that, you know, I have a knack for talking, and I have a knack for, you know, talking to teenagers in particular. And so I knew that being an art educator would fit very well into my career. And I've not regretted a single moment that I've been a teacher. It's something that you do out of dedication and out of just to enjoy your job every day. You know, I mean, what could be better than to go to work every day and talk about art? You know, and just working with the kids and seeing them discover things. So yes, I came to it a little later on. Didn't know I was going to be a teacher, but ended up being one for all these years.
Well, and when I love the fact you said discovery, because I think that is crucial. That is, I think it's the nature of creativity, the actual impulse in somebody to make art in any way. I always think is about discovery. But yes. I also want to get, you were talking about having this knack for talking to teenagers. Now, a lot of people don't feel like they have a knack for it. That's not an easy skill or knack to come by. What do you think is key to that sort of communication and that sort of relationship with the teenage students?
Just finding interest in what they're going through on that day, and just you know, talking to them as they're a human, as they're an adult, and not as the ultimate authority. You know, it is true that I learn as much from my students generally, and I know this sounds cliche, but it's true that I learn as much from them as they learn from me. You know, I just make a place for them to come and work and create and discover. You know, that's my job. And if they have questions, I'll try and answer a question. Or if they need a challenge, I'll try and come up to their challenge. And the thing is, you know, there's one of you and 25 or 30 of them, and everybody has a different intent on what they need to get done that day. And so that's the key on finding out what interests them and what they want to create and what they want to do, I think, and just managing it. I'm the type of person that likes 30 different things going on at once, you know, and that is perfect for the teaching profession because, you know, it's you just kind of guide the ship, but you don't really know the end of the course. So, but yes.
It might be perfect. It also strikes me as essential. Like if you don't have that skill, you better develop it.
You certainly have. Yeah, you certainly have, because there's just the right amount of them talking to each other and discovering things about each other and getting the job done, and them honing in and concentrating on what they need to do to create. You know, and for some people, it's you know, to discover the beauties of mark making. For others, it's to investigate a little bit more about color theory. And you don't always have to have an initial project, but you have to have a common goal. There has to be a common goal when they want to discover something that they need to add to their artwork. One of my favorite things to do is at the end of each semester, I get the kids, whether it's in digital format, but to look at their portfolio and what they've done from the beginning to where they are now. And that's that they see validity in that, and they feel successful about that a lot of times. And so that's a good all-encompassing, is to review where you've come and how far you've come. And that makes them feel confident. And if you can get a kid to feel confident, they will truly amaze you.
Well, I'm also interested in, you know, the part of your biography where we talk about developing things, and you mentioned color theory, and I was just having a conversation a couple of nights ago with an adult artist talking about that they didn't do color theory until they got to art school, and that they had wished it had been a high school thing for them. Have in developing curriculum over these 21 years, have you been pushing to touch on things that maybe 20 years ago were only a college level? I mean, what's the intention when you push and develop the curriculum at the Visual Art Magnet?
I'm kind of old school, to where, you know, I like to teach the basics to the freshmen, you know, how to mark make, how to see. If you can teach a student how to see something and interpret it in a unique way, you've been successful. And at that time, then the freshman kids, we get kids for the beauty of manual and the curse of manuals, we get kids from all over the county, and they come with different experiences. And if you can get them to concentrate on what they need to advance their journey, to advance their artistic vision or voice, you've become successful. But to individually do that, it takes a lot of talking and a lot of trust. And so they have to trust you first. And that is a vital thing on curriculum, is to figure out who needs what, when, at what age level, because it's like a moving target. You never know where it's going to come from. Whereas the older kids, if they know a lot of skill, if they have a lot of skill, they've had a lot of practice, because art's about making something, and the more you do, the better you get. That's all there is to it. And to get them to not just do an assignment, but to do their assignment. What they need to improve is that's for the older kids, you know, to develop their portfolio and develop their artistic voice. You know, it's gauging what age level needs what. Like elementary school kids, like, I think they need to just experience art. It's all about using the media and seeing what, and it's all about fun, and it's all about confidence of becoming an artist and thinking that they can be a creative problem solver, and then building on top of those skills, as it is all age appropriate to whatever age they're at that time. And so, you know, that's the best thing about building curriculum, is really editing what you do and what you don't do, and revising all the time, because things are changing. Just look how the internet has changed our lives in whole, and it has certainly changed art, as you well know.
Yeah.
And you have to keep up with that, and seeing how they respond to different stimuli, and how they put that into their work. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. And it also, though, when you describe the sort of breakdown of the curriculum in a sort of a 4-year pattern for DuPont. You're talking about, freshman years, like fundamentals, like foundation elements.
Correct.
Do you think that DuPont is sort of I hate the word college preparatory. I think it's become very, very out of fashion, but it sounds like you're giving them an experience that prepares them for that sort of structure should they go on to art school or a design program.
Yes. Many kids do go on to major in art and be artists in their own right. A lot of kids go in to be designers. A lot of kids go on to be doctors and lawyers or machinists. I mean, my dad was a machinist. I grew up in a very blue collar family, but there was always the value of education. There was always the value of improvement. I always got that from my folks, and lifelong learning, so to speak. And if you can do that, art is perfect for that. I mean, I don't understand why people think art is just for a pretty picture. It's about problem solving, and it's about looking for a new solution. And I always think of the curriculum when we what problem are we solving? Junior year, people take or our students take a course in printmaking, which I teach with a fellow teacher of mine, and she teaches textiles. Well, that's a whole new way of making art, because kids usually up to that point either paint or draw. But to take this medium and to manipulate it to what the image you want to make and the voice you want to say is pretty challenging, because they're both process medium. Before it was just kind of an immediate gratification when you paint or draw. So the curriculum is laid out in that way on how to, not a one and done. We're not going to say, okay, this is the only drawing we're going to do this year. So, don't be, you could be afraid. You don't have to be afraid to make mistakes, because this is one of many. This is not the only, we're not only going to paint and draw. We're not only going to copy National Geographic covers, which are artworks in their own right. We also have photography classes. And then we also have senior year, students can take as many as 3 and 4 different art classes if they want to have a further investigation in printmaking, study textiles or 3D art. So, we have a program that you can build on. You get a sampler pattern, and then you can go on and build on what they want to make art with. So that's very unique.
Well, and again, all of this sounds to me like college, like art school. I wonder, I mean, do you feel like your students come to this as a visual art magnet? It's not a roll of the dice. It's not the neighborhood school. And so I assume that they do have a certain understanding that they're going to a focused program, that, that this is not necessarily what the experience is like in an art class in every JCPS school. I'm sure many fine teachers out there, but that it does sound to me an awful lot like my experience of art school. So,
I mean, I didn't paint a color wheel until I was in college, but and so on and so forth. And so each of the teachers there, we're all artists in our own right. And so and we have the freedom to really center on what we think we do best as well. So that's quite a unique situation. And I've loved teaching there ever since.
do you feel like these students coming out of the magnet are getting, is that what you guys call it? Do you call it the magnet, or am I just that's just the word I've hit on here. But
we just call it VA.
VA.
Yeah.
That sounds good. Do they really have a leg up and going into college? And do you find that the students of yours that have gone into art programs come back? Do they come back? They talk to you? Do they talk about their experience?
All the time.
And do they feel like it was a leg up for them?
They do. I like to think all teachers get students that come back and say, I didn't quite understand why you harped on that at this time, but now I understand why, because I've used this in so many different applications and ways. And so, yes, I do get students coming back quite often, even just an email. I've been there so long, my email's been the same. And so they generally have contact with me, or you see them at a store or their current job now or something like that. And they're always like, yeah, I always appreciated what you thought was essentially important and that we didn't move on until. I have this saying a lot of times, it's kind of like, okay, we can't move on until we understand this concept, such as maybe proportion or something of that nature. And it's kind of like, because then you can manipulate it to bend it to your will, to what you need. And sometimes they don't understand kind of what you're getting at or why it's so essential, but it's the building blocks of what they can carry on with. So, but yes, I love it when they do that. I love when they come back. And I love, what I really love is I really love students that come back and want to do a presentation to the class on where they are now. We've had a student several years back who became a landscape architect, Lewis, and he came back and says, I'd really like to introduce this career to artists because it takes the creative process to become a landscape architect, and it is a viable, enjoyable career that I want to share with people. I have another person that just came recently and did an art therapy session where they're majoring in art therapy, and how, yeah, they were an artist in their own right, but the end product, the picture, is not what this career is about. It's about discovering things about yourself, and art is just a pathway. And so I love it when they come back with careers that they have done that are not typical. I'm a painter or anything like that. So
and that must be reassuring to parents who think, oh my gosh, my kid's just going to live in a hovel somewhere painting.
Yeah, it is. And you know what? I got to give accolades to the parents who do trust us enough to let their kids major in art. I know my parents, because like I said, I came from a very working class family, and my folks encouraged me to, once I made my decision to major in art, they encouraged me, they allowed me and guided me towards, that was a good goal for you. This is what you need to do. So if you keep an open mind like that, that's, it's invaluable, that you will always be grateful for.
Well,
I mean, you're at work so long, you have to love your career, right?
Right.
So, and if you're a creative person, you got to create.
Right. If you're a real artist, you create until you die. That's the only thing that stops it, really.
Yeah.
But so it also occurs to me when you talk about these things about problem solving, and there's been a lot of attention paid to this, an arts rich education, whatever your career path, it better prepares you for whatever, even being the president of the bank, I guess, whatever.
Yeah.
But it also strikes me as that, teenage years can be a very hard time for kids, and that there's something about the emotional health of kids who are in a program like this, who are creating whatever they end up doing, that it might, and I don't mean to make it sound like they're all in crisis, but we know what the teenagers are like. We live through them, and we see issues in the world today, that it's also just providing that sort of an emotional health, an emotional foundation for them when you go out into the world, whether you become an artist or not.
Yeah, it is. I mean, self-therapy is pretty important, and whether, even if you become a nurse or a doctor, if you still can release your creativity through that in some way, whether it's just drawing at home or implement it into your daily work. I mean, that is a release, and that does make you feel valid. And we all have to feel valid about what we contribute.
Right.
Or I would love us all to feel valid about what we contribute.
Well, that's what we're shooting for.
Yes, it is.
We just have a couple of minutes, and I have one last question. That somebody slipped me this little piece of information. I'm just going to ask you to talk about, where's Baldo?
Oh, that's hilarious. I don't know.
I feel comfortable asking you
I do. I
one
think
bald
I
guy
may
to
know
another.
where you got that from. But Baldo is every year in communication design, and I don't even teach this class. One of our teachers, they make a VA-centered yearbook about the experiences of 9th through 12th grade in the VA magnet that year. And it's a small little, it's a small, it has all the grades represented and just some pictures, and it's a recording of the school year.
Yeah.
Well, they generally have a theme, and from what I understand, Where's Baldo is going to be part of that theme this year. And Baldo, if you've seen me, you know I'm a bald man with glasses and a gray beard. Much like you could be Baldo,
Yes.
Keith. You know?
Yes.
And
that's why I felt comfortable asking that question, because we are similar in that way.
Yeah. This sweet little student who's a senior, she is one of the people in charge of putting together this publication. And she says, Miss Joyce, I want to ask you something. Please don't get upset or don't get mad, but I want to show you something and see if it's all right. And so I said, okay. That was a little iffy. I'm kind of like, okay, because you never know what kids are going to say. Like when they say, please don't get mad or upset. And so she pulled up on her computer this caricature of me, and underneath it, she said, we want to put this through the yearbook as Where is Baldo? And you are Baldo. And we're trying to find out where you are throughout this piece. It'll be kind of an interaction thing. I'm kind of like, that is the most adorable thing I could have ever seen. How could I possibly be mad at that? So, and there you go, is my validity on being a teacher on a kid wanting to add some humor to something and to put together a publication like that. I thought it was very endearing. And she also had an alternative, and I don't even remember what the alternative is from Where's Baldo, but it was Where's something else.
Well, it strikes me as in some ways, even more than getting an award, like it is the surest indicator that you have earned the respect and the affection of your students, that they would do that and approach you about that.
I think so. And you never know when that's going to pop up. I mean, it's just, it's always keeps me guessing. It keeps me on my toes, I guess. So, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
When you get to be a certain age, I'm 60, you have to challenge yourself more. It's not the grind of every day. More things are settled. And I like a good challenge. Who doesn't?
That's how we keep growing. That's how we stay alive. Well, Doug DeWeese, we're out of time today. Thank you so much for taking the time. And I'll say again, Doug DeWeese is being honored as Visual Art Educator of the Year at the 2023 LVA Honors on March 22nd. And it is a fundraiser for LVA. You can join us by finding the event page on Facebook. But you can go to louisvillevisualart.org and you can find out how you can get tickets and be involved in celebrating Doug DeWeese as well as other people.
And you can see Baldo, in person.
In person.
Yeah.
I wish I'd heard that first. We could have built the whole thing as special appearance by Baldo.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Doug.
You're welcome. Thank you. And thank LVA.